Hey guys, this is Tom Paul Tipton, your host for the Exchange Podcast. We're coming to you from Living Water Church in Conway, Arkansas. I'd like to welcome you back to another episode and say thank you to those who support this podcast with your contributions. Please like and share us on Facebook and get the word out, and like, subscribe, and share us on YouTube. Send any questions you have and join in on the exchange. Well, we are back, and this is episode 20. That's what we're recording today, and that is significant because looking at our subscriptions on YouTube, of course, we've got more on Facebook to follow us, but just looking at our subscriptions on YouTube, we're at 20. And of course, we reached 20 subscriptions prior to, we're at, 21. So we got one more. So that's actually good because one more subscriber than episode, that's batting over 100%. And that means that we've been doing this for 20 weeks, and that's pretty significant in the podcast world. But one of the reasons why we're starting this off a little bit different today is because it's been about a year ago that we started talking, and in fact, it's been right at a year ago that we started talking and beginning to create the vision that we believed God had laid on our hearts, and putting wheels to it, putting legs to it, if you will. And so here's what I'm wanting to do. By the end of the year, probably, I'm going to say before the year's out, we'll be at 100 episodes. And what I would really like to see is 100 subscribers. The reason why, and those of you that are listening to this that do attend and call Living Water your home church, one of the primary reasons for this podcast is to help this church and is to be an outreach for this church. But we need you to subscribe. We need you to like, subscribe, and share, because YouTube, Facebook, everything, algorithms are reading this. And so what they're doing is as you're listening to it, you don't even have to talk to your friends about it. The algorithms will do that for you, and they will start to promote this show for you. And then we can start to create a much bigger listening base, and then it's going to really help the church. So by really what my goal is here, there's two things here that I want to push for. One, I want to get 100 subscribers by the 100th episode. That's doable, perfectly doable. And then the second thing that I want to do, and I'm getting ready to sit down, and we're going to go over a letter, and we have reached, I'm going to say, a third of what the ask was in that letter, money-wise. And by the end of the year, I want to see another $1,000 brought in. I think the total that I set out was $3,000, maybe a little over. And one of the reasons why that we're able to do this right now, and we are doing this podcast every week, is because we are using the money for exactly what we asked you to send it for. And so we are able to record these episodes. We're able to put them out. But one of the things that we wanted to do when we started this is to be able to go live and also be able to have video while going live. And there's a few other there's some other equipment we need to purchase, and a next installment of $1,000 would be able to put us on our way to that. Now, I know you're going, hey, have you seen the gas prices? I'm paying the same thing for gas prices. As a matter of fact, I have two different vehicles that the one I'm not responsible for because it's a company vehicle, but I'm responsible for it in the fact that we've got to continue to get business in that company, because that vehicle costs about $250 to fill up. My personal vehicle that I bought when I first bought it was costing me $17 from empty to full. Now I can go from almost a third of a tank all the way to full for $60. And I understand where the gas prices are. So I don't say that candidly. I don't say that callously. I say that because I understand it is asking for a sacrificial gift but I do believe God blesses sacrificial gifts. And what we want to do with this podcast is exactly what we feel like God told us to do. And that is, number one, to be an outreach for this church. Number two, to try to bring a biblical worldview in a practical way. And number three, to try to speak to people who are especially of college age and even high school age, because that's the next generation coming up, and that's the generation that listens to a lot of podcasts. And so they've got a lot of negative stuff coming their direction, and we're trying to be a positive voice for the kingdom of God through this podcast. So I would ask, and we're getting ready to probably send out another letter. It's been a year later since we started doing all this, and working on another letter to get it sent out. Just simply telling you what has been accomplished, what the vision is, what has been accomplished, and what we're hoping to accomplish. Those three things is what the letter will address, and to ask you to pray for an amount that God would lay on your heart. I'm not asking you to send the whole 1,000 or even 100. Just pray and ask what God would have you send on your, or what God would place on your heart to be a financial blessing and to stand with this podcast. And so I just kind of wanted to start this week out to kind of let you know, number one, 100 subscribers by the 100th episode. And number two, be praying about a financial gift that you would feel like God would want you to give. This is not going into our pockets. This is not going into our gas tanks. This is going into this podcast so that we can do what the scripture tells us to do, and that is, whatsoever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. We want to give the best and produce the best and the most excellent, at the risk of sounding like Bill and Ted there, the most excellent product we possibly can. So with that, I'm just going to leave that with you and be praying about it. And what's on your mind today, Jay?
Bingo bango. Welcome back to the Exchange Podcast. Super excited to be here. And like Thomas was saying, we're really appreciative of all the help and support that any of you guys have given us along the way. We are at 21 subscribers. That's awesome. I'm super excited about it. I was encouraged by a podcaster / YouTuber, actually, most of the time. He talks about pop culture references in comics and, you know, anything that has to do with the movie industry. Shout out to Nerdrotic. Great guy. I watch his show. He keeps it real. And, you know, he said, you know what? Just talk.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might just be talking to yourself. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But you guys will find more often than not that we are here so that if we're like-minded, then, hey, you're not going crazy. You're not the only one who's thinking it. And, you know, the other thing that we want to do, the most important thing, is spread the truth from the word. We talk about a lot of different things. Last week we talked about pop culture references in Top Gun. We talked about Waco, Texas. We've talked about the Buffalo shooting. We've talked all the way back to one of our earlier episodes about confusion. And a lot of things we talk about are just all over the spectrum, and we want to be able to do these things, and we thank you for your support. So I just want to kind of, I'm just going to fastball it right now. Kavanaugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, a Supreme Court judge was threatened this last week. And not by words on the computer or words at a podium. No, there was a man with a firearm, zip ties, and admitted to wanting to bring harm to a Supreme Court judge.
Mm-hmm.
And the crazy part about it is that when you protest peacefully and then somebody does something crazy like that, brings a gun, brings an explosive, which is something I wholeheartedly advocate away from, usually the protesters say, okay, let's take a break for a minute. Let's reevaluate. Let's make sure we vet the people who are coming to the protest because we don't want things to get out of hand. No, as soon as that person was arrested, the protesters came back to Kavanaugh's house that day. Meaning, some of those people out there do not care that a person's life was threatened. And that does bug me because at the end of the day, we need to not be less than human. We need to be human enough to say, that's a person. You shouldn't be threatening someone's life. And just because I disagree with you does not mean you deserve to die.
Well, did you hear about Justice Amy Coney Barrett? What they did to her? They released all of her private information.
Oh, wonderful.
They told where her kids went to school. They obviously they gave her address out too. We know why this is. This is because the court ruling. As a matter of fact, I just heard some news yesterday that they expect that there could possibly be a ruling on that as early as this coming Monday.
Oh yeah, I think they have. You're talking about Supreme Court. They've got like 2 of them coming up this week.
Yeah, and of course that one's going to be on Roe v. Wade, and so this guy obviously he drives all the way from California and shows up to Kavanaugh's house. And when they questioned him after arresting him, he said that he was angry and upset and was out of his mind. Well, that's clear that he was out of his mind. Also, it's notable to note that this is the first Supreme Court justice who has ever had a threat on their life. I don't know as this will be the case, and I'm not making a prediction. I am going to say it is a possibility that this decision on Roe v. Wade could be a 9-0 decision.
It could. And
the reason I think it could be is because even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that this was a weak interpretation of that amendment to the Constitution. And then the other reason I think it could be is because it's very possible that what happened there is that this could galvanize the Supreme Court justices to go, we're not going to be threatened. And nobody knows which Supreme Court justice has split which direction. It could have already been. I would love for it to be a 9-0. I would be fine with a 6-3, but I'd love for it to be a 9-0 because if it's a 9-0, then what that says to the country is that a lot of this rage is just that. It's bought and paid for by somebody with a lot of money.
Yeah. So the story about Kavanaugh's house, the protesters showing up at Kavanaugh's house, I got it from timcast.com. I know a lot of people trust CNN and Fox News and the mainstream media still, and it is kind of jarring how much trust you put into people with billions of dollars who can fix how they want to write things. I would say I'd encourage you to find different sources of news. So Timcast, I love him, and it says here that on Wednesday morning, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't believe he deserves to have his name mentioned, a 26-year-old man was arrested near the home of Justice Kavanaugh after he called police to admit that he was suicidal and had traveled from California to murder him. In the words of my good friend, Jonathan Salman, you obviously have to be crazy if you're going to kill someone. We get that. It's like Thomas said, we get that. But guys, what are we doing to prevent this in terms of clearly there is not enough people standing up and saying this is wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, we're saying it's wrong. I've seen other podcasts say it's wrong, but there's nobody on the news saying like, well, hey. This person right here is we need to stop.
Yeah.
And we need to take a breath. I was willing to say we need to take a step back and take a breath when people were killed in Buffalo, mm-hmm. when kids were killed in Uvalde. We need to just take a break. Okay, it's time to take a step back and just say, okay, listen, you can't threaten anyone, let alone a Supreme Court justice. And so what I'm starting to realize is that there is a pattern. There are people that just do not care about human life.
Right.
And it's scary. There's a good number of people my age who believe that political assassinations are okay. Well,
they believe that they're okay. And look, let's just boil this down to the most basic. I understand people's argument when they say I'm for abortion in the case of saving the mother's life, and they, maybe I would say, okay, if you're going to, in the case of incest, rape, the jury's out on that one with me. There are some leeways that I could definitely give, and some green lights to say, okay, abortion would make sense in this case. But when you have the Constitution, if you will, to say I'm okay with abortion at any rate, at any part of the pregnancy, and now there are people who are okay with aborting the baby even after the baby is born. And here's the confusion. I'm always quick to point out the confusion that the left is so quickly through hypocrisy to live by, and that you will be charged for murder if you cause a woman to miscarriage a baby, and they should, because the Bible, even in Genesis, there was a penalty to the crime if two people got into a fight and the woman miscarried the baby. So I'm okay with saying, okay, this person is going to go to prison, but yet you can abort a baby, and even in some place, I mean, the governor, not the one now, but the former governor in Virginia, Governor Northrop, he was fine with abortion. I think even something like a week to 2 weeks after the birth.
Yeah, when the baby was born.
So then when you look at that, you go, okay, when you boil that down to the most basic definition, that's violence. And there's no wonder why we are seeing the violence in our streets right now. You cannot expect for people to be told all their life. Number one, when they decided that they were going to remove God out of the schools and to quit allowing students to pray and quit allowing students to read the Bible, you had to expect that what is violent about thou shalt not murder? What is violent about thou shalt not steal? What is violent about any of the 10 commandments? Well, it's violence because it says that it permits for the death penalty. That isn't violence. That is a just action. Listen, the death penalty is not a deterrent for crime. Obviously, we know that because a lot of people have been put to death and murder still happens. The death penalty isn't for that. The death penalty is because it is a just recompense for murder. I want to read something out of Romans chapter 1:25. It says this in verse 25: they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. So the fact that people are willing, if you will, to turn from the truth and to turn from God and to seek humanism and to seek the humanistic mindset on how to approach problems, that in and within itself is violence.
This idea that we're talking about isn't, like you said, isn't going to stop people from doing crazy things. That is, unfortunately, I know a lot of people would say, well, that's not good enough. You can't say you're for the death penalty and then also say it's not going to stop things. I think there's a lot of people, especially my age, who deal in absolutes that are so crazy. Like in their mind, it's like, we have to stop all rape. We have to stop all this. We have to stop all that. And it's like, I don't think you understand the idea that you're not going to do that. Whether you put in a law, whether you take out a law, whatever, you do what you want. I mean, a lot of people, when it comes to abortion, I would venture to say that I just don't want to pay for it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you can't have an abortion ever. I just don't want to pay for it through tax dollars.
Right.
Because I am of the belief that even if I put in a law and say it's illegal, people are going to do it.
That's right.
Just like the death penalty. I don't think I'm for the death penalty, but I can see a good argument for it, and I understand that this isn't going to stop every crazy murderer out there. But that's the key word, crazy. Crazy people are going to do crazy things all the time. And you can't predict crazy. I mean, shoot, that's one of the things about Americans, especially at wartime. We don't know what they're going to do. They're insane. And so we need to come to an agreement that we are not going to 100% anything. You can 100% video games, but those are video games.
Right.
You can 100% read a book. That's a book. When it comes to real life, we can't 100% these things. And I think what's going to go down, and again, this is like, I love this because this is just an opinion podcast. So, by all means, share your comment down below and like, share, subscribe to get more opinions on this. But my opinion is I see another summer of love coming up real soon.
I think that if they can do a 9-0, I think that would curtail that.
Oh, shucks. No, I don't think so. I don't even think a 9-0. I think what's going to happen is people, like I said, crazy people are going to do crazy things. So in my opinion, I think I truly believe that they will find a way to be.
I don't think it'll stop it. I think what it will do, the reason why I say curtail is because I think what it would do is it would make people that are kind of on the outs looking in, if you will.
Yeah.
It would make them go, okay, these guys are just raging just to rage.
Right. Yeah, and it's wild to me because I was talking with a buddy of mine and he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm pro-life." And it's like, I think everybody's pro-life.
Yeah.
I think the words are a little misconstrued. You're either pro-abortion or you're not you're against abortion. You're either pro or against abortion.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you'll see on TikTok, you'll see on Twitter, you'll see, I just want to have an abortion so I can kill a baby. I want to have an abortion just so I can know how it feels to be free and do what I want with my body. And it just sounds, and here's the thing, I get it. I really do. Like, I have heard it. I have seen it. I have been around many women who say, I just want to have control of my body. I just want to have control over my life. I get that. I get it. That doesn't mean I agree with you, but I do understand it.
Right.
But think of how crazy that is to say that I want to kill a baby.
It's ridiculous. I mean, because what you're doing is you are taking. The Bible says that children are the apple of God's eye. So what you're doing is you're taking not just the innocent, you're taking the very future. And let's go back to Exodus. Let's go back to even when Jesus was born. Satan put it in their hearts. Let's just call it who it was. Put it in their hearts to go and kill the children because you're taking away the future. And, kind of going back to your point about people saying that they want the freedom to do have an abortion so they can understand freedom to make a choice with their own body. Well, let's look at a choice of your own body. 1 Thessalonians 4:3 says to abstain from sexual immorality. See, there's another scripture where Paul talks about keeping your vessel, which is talking about your body, under control. If you really want control over your body, then start to control your passions.
Yeah.
Murder is a passion. Guess what? The guy who drove from California all the way to Brett Kavanaugh's house.
You have to have a passion to go cross country.
Well, you know what that reminds me of? There was this woman, I think it was back in the 80s. No, it was back in the 90s. And she had lost, her and her husband had divorced, and she had lost, I can't remember the story, and I don't remember. She drove, though, like that. I mean, like from one end of the country to the other. To kill her husband and take her children back. And she was so dedicated to it that she wore an adult diaper so she wouldn't have to stop to go to the bathroom. Oh. You remember hearing about this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was wild. But here's the thing. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that, hey, your passions, they're destructive.
Yeah.
Not only to you, but to others. And here's the thing. I'm not saying passions are bad. And I'm gonna quote from one of my favorite video games, and that's The Old Republic. There's a character on there. He's a Jedi. Some would say a gray Jedi. Nerd stuff there. But he's in the middle. He understands the dark and the light side. And he tells the main character, you, and he says, listen, I'm not saying passions are bad. We find that life is worth living more when you figure out that you love something. Mm-hmm. And even when that love is gone, you realize, oh, I could only experience that if I found a passion. Mm-hmm. but letting your passion control you and using that passion to gain power. And let's be real, when you kill somebody, you feel like, a lot of them say that they feel like they have power. When you use those passions to have that power, that's when you go down to the dark side. That's when you get into a dark place. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing wrong with passions. For instance, you look at Kobe Bryant. He was passionate about the game. Mm-hmm. And you look how he played the game. You look at people like LeBron James. You look at people in the NFL like Tom Brady. You look at these people who have passions and that they really go for it, and they do great things on the field. But here's the thing. If they indulge that one passion, that passion of the fame, maybe it's the fame, maybe it's the glory of having all those wins.
Yeah.
Tom Brady was only in retirement for 2 months before he came back.
Yeah.
And the joke was he got home, he looked at his kids, he looked at his wife and said, not worth it, let's go back. And I joke, that's in jest. But let's be honest. Sometimes you get so passionate about that glory that the things that are important, like your family and your kids. And I'm not saying Tom Brady's a bad dad. I'm just saying that some people could have that excuse of, well, I don't like my wife and my kids. I like the glory from other people. And again, that's not Tom Brady. I don't think that's Tom Brady. I think he loves his kids, just from what I've seen. But you get the idea that I think you could agree that if you let your passions overtake you, kind of like the Bible says, you let your flesh overtake you, you're going to cause harm, and not only to yourself but to others. And that's why abortion is a heavy topic for us.
Well, and here we were talking before we came on, and you asked me how was I going to tie climate change to the topic with Judge Kavanaugh.
I wanted to make a joke about this, but I'm not non-alcoholic, but drink. He said climate change.
Yeah. Well, here's what I think. I think that I don't know so much about the guy that drove to Kavanaugh's house. However, there was an article, and this article was written back in 2016, obviously right after Trump had won. So I mean, when everybody was
the good old days.
Trump derangement. I mean, that's probably the best phrase I've heard. And this Anthony Annette, who writes, he's a columnist for the Commonwealth magazine, and he is in this magazine. He's linking abortion and climate change, and of course, he's obviously for abortion, but he is talking about this an author. He's a critic who writes for the Federalist, and his name is Daniel Payne. And Daniel Payne just talks about that abortion is a direct killing and taking of human life, whereas climate change is not. And one of the things that we know about climate change is that happens. That's something that's going to happen. But in this article, this Anthony Annette writes, and he says, is climate change a leading pro-life issue? He says, without a doubt. As anyone paying attention can tell you, it is the greatest threat to life, health, and stability on the 21st century. Now, he's saying that climate change is the greatest threat to life. Okay, let's go back. And we talked about, we talk about different social, cultural things. And one of the things that I'll point out here is if you go back to the late 1970s, it wasn't global warming they were worried about. It was global cooling. It was freezing. They were worried about another miniature ice age. And the band The Clash wrote a song called London's Calling, and that's what it was talking about.
Yeah.
So
weird.
A cool song, but it's talking about a miniature ice. So we already know, because let's talk about Stradivarius for just a minute. One of the reasons why that many people love the Stradivarius violin isn't because it's rare. It's because it was made, and historians pretty much have concluded, well, not historians, but geologists have pretty much concluded that there was an ice age, a miniature ice age that had happened in the earth during the time that he made that. And so what he did is he had to use wood that had been frozen and had started to thaw out. And they think that's one of the things that gives it such the great timbre and such the great sound.
Man, that's so... The combinations of things like events in nature and like human ingenuity that makes things certain things rare. Like that's That's always been one of those. I always talk with Sarah about like. Sorry to cut you off.
No,
but, like that's just one of those things that like as a believer that just makes me think like, man, God, like super cool that you allowed these combinations to happen because I never even knew that. I thought it was just because they are rare.
No, they are rare.
I mean,
but that's
by
not the
design.
Yeah, that's not the reason they're rare. But one of the things is they are still to this day. You can't find a violin that's even going to come close to that sound. And a lot of people believe it was because the wood had been frozen.
Wow.
And so that lets us know that the climate goes up and it goes down, goes up and goes down. And so what they want to say is, well, it's all the CO2 emissions and it's all the fossil fuels. And I was reading something. This comes from the Office of Nuclear Energy. Now I know you're going to read that and you're going to say, well, yeah, but they're talking about nuclear energy, so therefore it's biased. No, it's just giving some stats. And number one, 20% of America's electricity comes from nuclear power. Not only that, but we power a lot of the world. And so nuclear power is one of the cleanest energies out there, and any scientist will let you know that. And one of the things is that, like, I was reading some of the stats, and they said that one nuclear plant is equivalent to, I want to say it was like 5,500 panels of what is that electricity? Solar. And it's something like 50. So not only is it cheaper to use nuclear power and cleaner, it's more efficient.
Yeah.
Because one nuclear plant can power, man, it's a ridiculous amount. And I'll pull those stats up here in just a minute, but it is a ridiculous amount as opposed to what that many solar panels it would take to power electricity.
Thomas, have you ever played the game Fallout? I'm so upset by your ignorance on nuclear power. That is what's going to destroy us. I don't understand why you would want to do that. Do you want to grow up in a vault? Do you want to live underground? Insane. You are insane. Well, nuclear power. Are you kidding me? What we need to do is just go buy an electric car. I mean, you've heard certain senators say, well, I don't care about the gas prices. I've got an electric car.
All right, right here. Okay. 3.125 million PV panels based on the average silicon model panel size of 320 watts. So that's just to power 320 watts. Okay, 431 utility scale wind turbines. Just to get 2.32 milliwatts. 100 million LED bulbs just to get 78 lumens. Now this is not for one grid, right? This is like, well, yeah, it's powering one grid. So that's roughly 1.3 million horses based on
power.
Yeah, and so that's like 2,000 Corvettes.
And that's just one power plant for nuclear.
Yeah,
that's insane. Yeah, I think the crazy thing is that I've heard people, especially people my age, it's you're doing a disservice to the world if you have a kid. Why? Well, because if you have a kid, then they're gonna have to live through this hell. You understand that our society and life needs to keep going, and then of course you get the edgy nihilistic people, which I've had family members say this. Well, maybe it's time for things to die. Anyway, okay, we get it. You read something on nihilism once. You're very introspective on that. But the thing is, look, abortion is a tough one for me. When it comes to LGBTQ, I understand, but like I said before, I can understand, but that doesn't mean I agree. And abortion's weird because I understand and I agree, and then I disagree, and then it's just a weird concept because not every situation is the same. Abortion is a subjective thing, and abortion is wrong because you're killing something. Mm-hmm. You're killing a child, no matter what. But then you get those moments of like, we need to do abortion because the mother's gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna catch me saying, yeah, abortion is the right decision there.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I've never been really a climate change anything. I remember hearing back in high school, one of my teammates on the football team was like, and this kid, a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, it's just a football player. This guy went to the University of Pennsylvania on scholarship for academics. This guy is not dumb. He does his research. Yeah. He's smart, even then. And he was like, well, there's more trees in this continent than there was 100 years ago. And
that's true.
And I think to myself, oh, so why are they complaining? Well, the rainforest is dying. Like, we are killing the rainforest off. It's not good. We can't, the thing is, a lot of people would say, oh, so you don't mind if the forest dies? No. I do care, because one of the first things God told us was to tend to a garden. He told us to be stewards of the land, meaning we shouldn't just be slaughtering things to slaughter things, or we shouldn't be, we need to take care of these things. So I think we need to do away with the whole climate change argument. Okay, Bill Gates isn't a scientist. Okay, stop listening to him. Stop listening to these people who are saying, "Oh, well, you just need to get an electric guitar." I almost said that.
I would go for that.
Electric cars are my dad works with Tesla, and definitely those cars are pretty awesome. But it's not gonna change. We can't change the climate. I know that you can seed and everything, and you can do cloud seeding and all that stuff. But I mean, look, if the world wants to do something, then I truly believe God's going to allow it. But even if I wasn't a believer, I would still believe that the world is going to change things how it needs to change.
Well, even Elon Musk said that the technology is not there to change things as drastically as they're wanting to change it. And to answer, as far as climate change is concerned, climate change is something that happens. That's normal. God created it to do that.
The seasons,
yes,
and that's a small thing, but like the climate is going to change,
right? But all that, first off, after the Great Flood, and we don't get off on that rabbit trail right now. But after the Great Flood, a lot changed about the earth. Just go read the scripture; it'll let you know that. Go read Genesis. But when we're talking climate change, what climate change is a religion. That's exactly what it is. Listen. We just read in Romans, it says that they forsook the truth about the Creator, God, and they believed a lie. They worshiped creation. What's going on right now is America, not everybody, but America as a whole went down a path of deciding that God does not exist. So when God doesn't exist, we have to replace that with something.
Yeah.
And in 1 Timothy 4, I read this last week, but it says, the Spirit clearly says that in the later times, some will abandon the faith and follow deceiving spirits and things taught by demons. Such teachings come through hypocritical liars whose consciences have been seared with a hot iron. The people that are pushing this they don't have a conscience, because what they know is they know exactly what Elon Musk said. This is why they hate him. They know exactly what Elon Musk said, that the technology is not there, and they know that. I just went into some gas stations yesterday right here in Arkansas where shelves were empty. Why? Because the supply chain, they can't get them there. So from truck to shelf is not happening as fast as it has. And so here's one of the stats I wanted to look at. A typical 1,000 megawatt nuclear facility in the United States needs a little more than 1 square mile to operate. That's significant. No,
that's not that big for a facility like that.
Yeah, and so and then wind farms require 360 times more land area. So to put that in perspective, you would need more than 3 million solar panels to produce the same amount of power as a typical commercial reactor. You know what? As they said about COVID, I'm going to say about this. If you want to find out where all this is going, follow the money. Who is responsible for the solar panels? You want to know who? China. So that's where this is. China has come in.
It's weird.
And what they've done is they have bought up billions.
Yeah, of land.
Of land, yes. And so what that's going to do is that's going to put them in the ability to be able to control the pricing and to control who buys what. Guess what? There is a scripture where God tells Israel, he says, if you forsake me, then your enemies will come in and your enemies will control you and they will rule you. And that's what's going on right now in the United States. America has decided to turn its back against God. So now what's happening is we're not being overthrown and sacked like the Romans were, but we're being sacked economically.
Well, there's a video game called Civilization, and I know a few listeners on here who listen to our podcast have played Civilization, and some of the ways that you can take over a country is culturally, and it's not just the land, guys.
Well, it's what the Muslims, or like the extreme Muslims do.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they do.
Yeah, so it's not just the land. It's the cultural aspects of what our best production has been for the last 50, 60 years, and that is entertainment. When you look at the United States, our best export in the 1980s, 1990s, and the early 2000s, man, was movies. You know, a lot of people wanted to see movies, and guess what? China figured out that if they could control how much money the movies were getting, they can control a lot of cultural things.
Yeah.
For instance, did you see the movie Black Panther?
Yes.
Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace. Well, on that poster in the United States and many other places around the world, it's Chadwick Boseman's face doing the crossed arms pose that he does. In China, his face is covered because not Chinese people, but the Chinese government don't like black people, and they don't want you to know that. In Star Wars, The Force Unleashed, the Episode 7, one of the sequels. Did you go see that?
No, I haven't seen that.
It's fine if you don't see it, by the way. But there is a character in there named Finn. He is black.
Oh, I know who that is.
Huge.
I did see the first one. I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah. He's huge, and he's on the poster, and he's very prominent on the poster.
Yeah.
In China, he was shrunk because, again, the Chinese government don't like black people.
Right.
Look, they have the NBA. Whenever the NBA does anything and anybody says something about China, the NBA says, no, let's not talk about that. When Disney comes out with the movie Mulan, they thank a Uyghur Muslim internment camp, maybe a concentration camp, maybe a work camp, but they are doing bad things to the Uyghur Muslims. And look, they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So they can control how culture looks. And so they can make people... See, here's the thing. Culture does play a part in how people think.
Yeah.
Look what Top Gun did. Top Gun was pro-America. The enemy, faceless, nameless. They didn't mention. They just said, "Oh, the enemy has this. The enemy has that." We don't need a movie about the United States bombing any of our enemies, like in the real world. No, you just put a red marker on them and just say bad guy, and we say, "Okay, cool, bad guy," and we watch a good movie and we have a good time, and everything is fun about that, and it makes a lot of money.
Well, do you remember? I mean, you know the movie Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Okay, when the first one came out, it was Russians attacking America.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they decided some years later to remake it. Horrible remake, by the way.
With Josh Peck in it. I remember that.
Yeah.
And Thor, I think, right?
He wasn't. I think he was. He was the oldest brother.
Oh, man.
And so
go Wolverines.
So anyway, the idea was when they were going to make the remake, it was going to be China that attacked.
Yep.
Well, China didn't like that because they didn't want to be put into a bad light. So what they did, and this shows you how much China has involved and invested in the United States. And you mentioned something there, and I was trying to pull it up, but I can't get it to pull up. There was a philosopher who said, "I don't care who sits on the throne. Give me the music, and I rule the culture."
Yep.
And so what he was saying is I can control the country. I can influence the country by influencing the culture. And so China did not want to be the bad guys in the remake. So what do they do? They make North Korea the bad guys. Okay. Look, North Korea is a state. The entire country is about the size of the state of Mississippi. Okay, that's like taking the state of Mississippi and saying we're going to have you invade the rest of the United States. It's not going to happen. So then what they ended up having to do was the Russians were the ones. So it all came back to Russia.
Yeah.
The point being is that when China knows if we can control the culture, if we can control the narrative through the entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the reasons. I'm just telling you, this is why I've not downloaded a TikTok app.
I don't blame you.
Because they run TikTok.
Yeah.
And I don't want the Chinese, nothing against Chinese people.
No, not the people, the government.
I don't want their government having that much information on me, because I'm sure they've already got enough thanks to our government. But I don't want to freely give it to them.
Wait a minute, Thomas. You're telling me that our issue is usually with a nameless, faceless entity that has so much power that...
Well, isn't that what happened on Top Gun?
Oh, yeah.
It was a fun.
Yeah.
That was pretty incredible. I got to say that they did that.
I got to be honest about how I really feel about the Chinese people. They're really, really great, and they're very hospitable. Chinese people, I'm from California, and Chinese people are very hospitable. And yes, are there people who are prejudiced around the world? Yeah, sure. And I remember being with my dad, who's dark as the night sky, by the way. He'll tell you, you'll find some people who are prejudiced against black people, especially in Asia, just because they don't know them. But man, once you get to know somebody from any of the Asian cultures, they're hospitable. They'll feed you. They're very much great and wonderful people to be around. Now, the Chinese government, on the other hand, can...
they'll feed you to the lions.
They won't feed you food. Yeah, they'll feed you the lions or the monkeys. I hear they have a huge monkey problem out there. That's just, but the reality is, guys, it's okay to have children. The world's climate is going to change. Sometimes it might just get a little hotter and you'll get a sunburn faster, or it might just get a little colder and you have to bundle up more.
Yep.
I think we should be looking to alternatives like nuclear power. I think that'd be a great thing to look at. But again, look where the money's going, and we'll figure out what the problem is there while we're getting caught up. I want to, I know we're coming close to the end of the show, so I want to go back to the first thing we talked about. Kavanaugh does not deserve to die because Kavanaugh disagrees with somebody on the other side of the political spectrum. And also, no one deserves to die or be threatened for their ideas and what they may or may not be able to influence in the culture. If you have a podcast and all you do is talk communist propaganda, I do not want you gone. I don't. If you are on a podcast and you talk about things like fascism, I do not want you gone. I want you to have a conversation with somebody, because when we're able to talk about these things and have these exchanges, then people can make an educational judgment call of, oh, this guy's crazy. Because I'll be honest, I think communists are crazy. Yeah. I think socialists are crazy.
Yeah.
I think fascists are crazy. Change my mind then. And I am open for that. I know a lot of people would say, oh, you're not really open to have your mind change. You don't know that. I'm telling you right now, from what Thomas has been talking about since the beginning, because like that letter's going to go out, I want people on this podcast. I want people on this podcast to teach me something. I want the people on this podcast to learn from me. I want people on this podcast who are going to disagree with me. I want people on this podcast who are going to say, I never want to hear from you again.
And as you said, well, as we're coming to an end here, I want to give the proper quote and give credit to the man who made it. It was Andrew Fletcher who said, "Let me make the songs of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws." And of course, he was quoting what has been attributed to Rothschild that said, "Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws." Listen, both those statements are true, and that's what people who we call the elites, who I call pariah, that's what they have understood. They have understood that if they have control of the money and they have control of the entertainment, they can control the narrative, and they can make people. They can create the group. They can cause the group think. They can be the influencers, and they can determine who the influencers are. I remember when I was in college, I was in a commercial music industry class, and we were talking about how that then, this is 2000, how that then that the producers and the promoters knew exactly at what point Britney Spears was going to peak at her popularity. And they also knew at what point to start bringing her back, because that's how when they decide to break an artist, which what that means is make that artist known and famous. When they decide to break an artist, what they're doing is they have got it down to such a fine art, if you will, that they control when that person's going to make the label, and when their record and when their single and all that's going to hit, and how much money they're going to drive from it. That's why we have to be careful who we're allowing to influence us and to control us.
Yep. Well, I think today was a wonderful exchange. I've enjoyed every second of it like I usually do. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to be putting more episodes out on the Facebook page. What I'll do is I'll post our playlist from YouTube so that you can get more of the word out on Facebook and YouTube. Like we said, we're going to be sending out a letter. We hope that if you can donate, we want you to know that it is going to this podcast. It is going to this enjoyment of conversation, this exchange. And, leave a comment, like I said, below, and just tell us how you think we can improve. Tell us what you guys think. If you disagree with us, disagree with us. We gave a couple of shout-outs to many different people, like the timcast.com, and we really appreciate what they do with their news worthiness. And another shout-out to Nerdrotic. Really appreciate them just being who they are, continuously encouraging us just by what they do. And that's what we want to do for you. We want to encourage you to, like Thomas said, figure out who's influencing you and how they're influencing you and growing from it. So I want to say we love you. We hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Please be safe. Thomas, is there anything else you want to leave off with?
I just want to say, hey, thanks for listening every week, and keep talking it up, and keep subscribing and sharing, and let's keep this going.
Have a great one, guys. Love you.